Squawk!
Welcome to the fourth and final act of our Episode 8 rewrite, The Balance of the Force. Thank you so much for sticking around. Again, I'm going to quickly recap the story so far. If you don't need it, click here to skip to this timecode. Act 1 was the missing act, where we fleshed out the backstory that's been lacking in the sequel trilogy. After Return of the Jedi, our heroes had 20 years of peace until the casino planet, Canto Bight, started an anarchist movement called the Insurgency to fight the New Republic. Their red and black color scheme and recommissioned Imperial ships clues the audience that they're the start of the First Order. General Luke Skywalker is encouraged by several of his admirals to use portable Death Star tech called an orbital cannon to kill insurgents from space. But being the good guy that he is, he chooses a capture-first policy instead, causing the New Republic to incur heavy casualties. Padawan Ben Solo is tasked with leading the on-ground battles where he gets a first-hand view of the casualties, causing a rift between him and Luke. In the present, Rey hides her Force bond with Kylo so that she can get Jedi training from Luke. Finn recovers at the Resistance base, and he and Rey deepen their relationship via holopad communicator. Finn says if he was able to turn from the First Order, maybe others could too. They promise to try to save the First Order if they can. Luke teaches Rey a new Force technique to absorb blaster bolts. After several months of training, Rey has made tremendous progress, becoming a confident, capable Jedi. Act 2 picks up where The Last Jedi began. The First Order head ship discovers the location of the Resistance and chases them through space. The First Order damages the Resistance ship's hyperdrive. Poe and Finn hyperjump to Canto Bight, the birthplace of the Insurgency, to get parts for the hyperdrive. On the Jedi Island, Rey enters the dark side pit to find answers about her parentage, but is pulled out at the last second by Luke. Luke reveals the true origin of the First Order. It was a takeover from within the New Republic military by a group of admirals led by Admiral Snoke. They believed Luke's merciful approach was ineffective, so they used the orbital cannon to kill insurgents, illustrating their philosophy: use force to guarantee peace. Ben Solo agrees with them after seeing the casualties from Luke's policy firsthand. During a fight, Snoke saves Ben by pushing him out of the way of Luke's lightsaber, but it stabs him in the head. Luke and the good admirals flee. Snoke, Kylo, and more than half of the New Republic military becomes the First Order. Leia is ousted from the Senate, Jedi teachings are banned by the New Republic, and Luke is exiled. The First Order attempts to do good by fighting the Insurgency, saving many lives, including a young Finn, but they indoctrinate everyone they save. Luke reveals Snoke sacrificed himself for Ben because Ben is a chosen one, like his grandfather Anakin. Act 3 Twists and turns. Finn and Poe steal parts for the hyperdrive by distracting the residents using Canto Bight's PA system, then return to the Resistance head ship. In a Force connection, Kylo reveals to Rey that the First Order has an orbital cannon locked onto the Resistance ship and blackmails her into surrendering to the First Order. She flies off in secret using Luke's old X-Wing, but Luke and Chewie follow soon after in the Falcon. On the First Order head ship, Snoke uses the Force to give Rey a vision of her parents. Luke arrives. While Snoke is distracted attacking Luke, Kylo is able to cut Snoke in half, but Snoke says his plan is already done. Luke reveals that Kylo saved Leia from dying in space, and that Kylo was already on the path to good because Han sacrificed himself so that Kylo could never fully fall to the dark side. When Rey wakes up, she reveals Snoke's vision. Luke's passive stance in the Insurgency War allowed her parents to die. Hux reveals Snoke never actually wanted Kylo as an apprentice, he wanted Rey all along. Luke realizes Kylo is not a chosen one, Rey is. Rey now believes in the First Order's philosophy of using Force to guarantee peace, because if Luke had done that, she'd still have parents today. She accepts command of the First Order, while Luke, Ben, and Chewie flee to the Resistance ship. Now Act 4, our grand finale. Let's put the last puzzle pieces in place. Ben and Luke just escaped from the First Order head ship, and Rey decided what she wanted to do with the First Order. The First Order head ship is now right on the tail of the Resistance ship, but instead of blowing them up with the orbital cannon, it suddenly hyperjumps away. The Resistance celebrates, but Finn wonders why they would suddenly choose to leave when they were right in their grasp. Luke and Ben have returned to the ship. Luke and Leia share a brief but emotional reunion similar to the one from The Last Jedi. Ben also reunites with Leia. She thanks him for saving her life, but bemoans it would have been nicer if she never got blown into space in the first place. They share the bad news. Rey has fallen to the dark side and now believes it's her job to enforce order on the entire galaxy. Finn remembers he told her that on Canto Bight there were people suffering as she did. And Luke also remembers he told her the insurgency began on Canto Bight. They realize Rey is going to attack Canto Bight to free the workers that are suffering as she once did, and at the same time take revenge on the insurgency movement that claimed the lives of her parents. Symmetry. The first part of the movie was the First Order chasing the Resistance. Now the Resistance is chasing down the First Order. The Resistance ship is able to contact other Resistance forces, but it will be hours before the closest can arrive. So for now, they're going to be on their own. Finn tries calling Rey again and again on his communicator. We see that she hears the call, but doesn't respond. The Resistance arrives to see the First Order assaulting Canto Bight. Under orders from Rey, the First Order lets the lower class go, but they are noticeably keeping the ruling class in the city by force. We see one upper-class citizen attempt to escape via their speeder, and the First Order quickly blows them up. Captain Phasma is on the ground, directing the mission. The lower class is chaotically scattered outside the city, while the mission to contain the upper class is organized and efficient, giving us a window into Rey's priorities. She cares more about revenge than actually helping those in need. Once Phasma reports the lower classes out of the city, Rey orders the First Order to attack those left in the city, the insurgency upper class. The Resistance deploys what's left of their forces to fight the First Order. Luke, Ben, Finn, and the remainder of the Resistance ground forces fly to the city to defend the residents. Luke lights up his old green lightsaber, while Ben activates his red one. Another moment of symmetry. Ben still has his red lightsaber, and Rey still has Luke's blue one. This parallels the main theme of the movie. There's good in the bad and bad in the good. This also gives us the opportunity to have Luke reach out to Rey in Episode 9 via that lightsaber. Remember Vader's scene at the end of Rogue One where he's absolutely wrecking shop with the rebels? This is our opportunity to do the same thing for Captain Phasma. With a bunch of random resistance and insurgent forces running around, there'll be plenty of cannon fodder for her to light into, John Wick style, letting the audience see exactly why she's so feared. Finn can still eventually fight her, but this time we'll be a lot more afraid for him now that we've seen exactly what she can do. Having just lost Rey to the dark side, Luke is having a bit of a moral crisis. He's wondering if maybe he was wrong all along, that instead of there always being good in others, there's always evil. He's doubting his decision in the war all those years ago to show mercy to his enemy instead of striking them down. Learning the wrong lesson at the wrong time, he suggests that maybe this time they should strike down the First Order. Someone needs to reaffirm Luke's belief in himself, and that person is going to be Finn. Finn is not going to strike down the First Order because he made a promise to Rey to save them. Also, Finn is inspired by Ben's redemption from the First Order, which mirrors his own journey. It's time for Finn to complete his character arc of converting troops from the First Order. There's another symmetry here. The First Order saved him as a child, and now he's going to save them. He tries to patch into the First Order's communications using his old codes, but it's no use. They've changed their security protocols. Poe, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Calling back to their previous mission to Canto Bight, Finn accesses the city's PA system and delivers a Captain America-esque speech. I never asked to be a stormtrooper. Many of you didn't either. Like many of you, I was taken as a child, conscripted to fight in a battle I didn't want to fight, forced to become something I didn't want to become. I was made to give up my individuality, to become another cog in the machine. But I am not machine, I am human. I am not FN2187, I am Finn. They told me the First Order was ensuring justice throughout the galaxy. But at some point, doing the right thing and serving the First Order became two different things. And as they order you now to kill innocent civilians, I think deep down you know it's true too. There's a voice in you telling you what's right and wrong, just as there was in me. I found the strength to listen to that voice. I hope you do too. One after another, First Order troops take off their helmets, renouncing the First Order and expressing their individuality. Then, 3 quick shots, one after another, 3 First Order defectors are shot dead. It's Captain Phasma. The First Order defectors return fire and team up with the Resistance. Ben realizes the First Order defectors are now their most valuable asset, as they have up-to-date knowledge of the First Order's operations. He tells Finn to board them onto a transport and evacuate them from the city. Rey finally calls Finn back. He tells her he did it. He was able to save some of the First Order, like they promised. But Rey thinks she saved the whole First Order, and is going to use them for good. In a tragic symmetry, they both accomplish the promise they made to each other, but in wildly different ways. Rey says after what happened to her parents, she cannot let evil exist in the galaxy. She must stop it. She asks Hux if Finn is outside the city, and he says yes. She tells Finn she's sorry, then orders the ship to fire the orbital cannon on Canto Bight. Luke and Ben realize there's no way they can evacuate all the residents in time, but Luke comes up with a plan. With his power to absorb laser blasts, he might be able to absorb the blast from the orbital cannon. Ben protests, saying something that powerful would surely kill him. Luke says this is the only way. For Luke, this is the war all over again. These are insurgents, his enemy, those who fought against the Republic, yet he's willing to lay his life down for them all the same. After all these years, Ben finally got to see Luke again and already has to lose him. Ben apologizes for all the lost time, all the wrong he has done. Luke tells him there's only one way for him to make up for it. He must save Rey. Ben watches from afar as Luke flies his X-Wing into the sky. The orbital cannon fires, obliterating the X-Wing all around Luke, but he is able to absorb the laser blast. Luke glows brighter and brighter until he evaporates in a burst of white light. This is quintessential Luke. These people are responsible for him losing everything, his Republic, his Jedi Order, his nephew, and for a long time, himself. Yet he still sees the good in them, and is willing to sacrifice his life for them all the same. There is no better way for Luke to die than in service of his defining ethos, the same way he was willing to die all those years ago because he saw the good in his father. Luke's sacrifice has bought enough time for the rest of the Resistance forces to arrive. They drive away the First Order ship, saving the planet. We see the Resistance cheering the victory, followed immediately by silence as they hear the news of Luke's death. As the First Order retreats, we get a scene to hook us into the next movie. Hux presents Rey with an ancient object, telling her, Supreme Leader Snoke wanted you to have this, a Sith holocron, a repository of Sith knowledge and a source of dark force energy. He said it would tell you what to do next. As Rey takes it into her hands, it starts to glow red. Cut to Luke's memorial service on the Resistance ship. Admirals tell old war stories of Luke's heroics. Leia speaks about how Luke always saw the good in people. Many say that was his biggest strength, but it goes even deeper than that. For years, she wondered how he saw the good in Darth Vader, one of the most terrible people in the galaxy. When he destroyed her planet, she didn't sense any good in him, only darkness. She realized there was no good in Vader for Luke to see. Rather, Luke believing in the good in Vader caused the good in Vader. Vader was only able to turn good because his son believed in the good in him. That was ultimately Luke's lesson. If you believe in the good in people, they will rise to meet it. Over her words, we see a resident of Canto Bight, grateful for Luke's sacrifice, signing up to volunteer to help the Resistance. The camera pans out, and we see more and more lining up to volunteer. Luke's death inspired them to be something greater. In the end, Luke was right. There was good in them all along. We see Rose tear up as she spots one of the First Order defectors wearing the other half of her pennant, her long-lost twin sister. Remember, even Luke was contemplating killing the First Order. This moment happened only because Finn saw the value in Luke's philosophy. One final symmetry. Rey's insecurity was her fear of abandonment. She was able to find a father figure in Luke. The tragedy is that she overcame her insecurity not by embracing that connection, but by killing it. It's just like how Anakin's fear of losing a loved one ended with him not embracing that love, but killing it. Back on the Resistance ship, Ben grieves with Leia. He apologizes to her about everything, about the First Order, about being responsible for his father's death. But he tells her the last thing Han did was sacrifice himself to save him. Leia says she knew, because the Ben she knew would never kill his own father. Your father never gave up on you, Ben. Right until the very end, he loved you. I know. And that is Star Wars Episode 8, The Balance of the Force. Now there is a place for the story to go in Episode 9. Ben, Finn, and the Resistance must save Rey. In a final symmetry to close the story, instead of Rey sacrificing herself to save Ben, like Vader sacrificed himself to save Luke, Ben must sacrifice himself to save Rey. After all the atrocities he has committed, it's the only fitting close to his story. And moving forward, we'll get a much more interesting story with Rey, because even though she'll ultimately redeem herself and be a leading force for good, she'll have to live with the guilt of all the terrible things she's done, like killing Luke. We can get a more complex, relatable, human story of an imperfect person with baggage trying the best they can to do what's right, despite their past. Again, if we follow through on the threads laid down in The Force Awakens, Finn and Rey will end up together. Finn caring about Rey can be one of the things that helps bring her back from the brink, giving her the hope to turn back to the light. And, you know who else turned away from the First Order and feels guilt over the things they've done? Finn. He would be the perfect match for Rey. At the end of the series, you'll have a complete heroine's journey, moving from the highest hope to the lowest despair, and finally learning to move forward after picking up the pieces. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. My next project will be to continue this story into Episode 9. If you want to keep up to date on future videos, please like and subscribe. Thanks everyone. Take care.